Boom. Guys, tell me in the comments if this broadcast is clear. You know, I didn't charge my phone last night. Can you believe it? So I'm on autopilot. And I'm going to need you guys to tell me exactly what's going on. If we're loud and clear, and if this broadcast is clear, for goodness sake, go ahead and jump on here. Incidentally, I've got some good news. You remember a while ago, I sort of shared with you guys that I had misplaced my watch and my ring. Lo and behold. Ever heard the expression, right under your nose? Ever heard people say this? It was right under my nose the whole time. And here I was, thank you, mwewa. Here I was agonizing over the fact that I had possibly forever lost my ring and my watch. The whole time, both of them were in a little slide, like a little slide slip pocket in my bag. But here's the thing. A couple of days before, I had rummaged through my bag. I was sitting here and I saw, you know how sometimes you have your bag and it's full of gunk? It's just full of stuff. And this is the reason, this is indicative of a discombobulated mind. If your bag it's just got all kinds of stuff in it, it means you're not organized. And I'm not really organized. So I reached the other night, I was sitting on my bed, on my side of the bed, and it's always when you're looking for something else. Do you find this to be true? It's always when you're looking for something else that you find something, you stumble upon something that you had forgotten about a couple of weeks prior. So here I was rummaging through my bag for something. I don't know what it was, a handkerchief, a toothpick or something. And all of a sudden, I grab a hold of my watch and I pull it out and I think, here's my watch. In my mind, I was thinking, well, if my watch is in my bag, stands to reason that my ring would be in my bag. So I now start frantically rummaging through my bag, and lo and behold, wouldn't you know, my ring was right there. The whole time, my ring and my watch were both in my bag, and yet I had agonized for weeks. I didn't know where they were. You know, one day I walked in, my wife looked at me and she said, so where's your ring? I said, you know, you're not going to believe this. She says, oh yeah, I'll believe it. I said, well, you know, the truth is, I don't know where I placed it. Well, she said, well, you know what? You're walking around without a ring. Guess what? I'm walking around without a ring. How do you like that, Mr. Man? She didn't say that. She did not say that, asshole. Okay? It's just for dramatic purposes. But she did ask me where I put my ring, and I said, I've left it somewhere. I'll find it. And here we are. I have it. You feel sort of naked without these things, you know. Honestly, tell me in the comments, is there anyone else that feels utterly naked without your ring and your watch? Tell me now. All right, guys, let's get into it. I know what is it? We're still within lunch hour, and that's good. As soon as I'm done talking to you lot, I'm making a beeline and I'm having fish. Did I ever share with you guys? And tell me if I've shared this, please indulge me. I could eat fish every single day and twice on Sunday. Tell me I've got a problem. Tell me. Tell me I'm ODing on omega-3. Tell me. Tell me I am Aquaman. Tell me I am Aquaman. Wasn't even funny. All righty. Guys, let's get into it. A few minutes ago, I was watching KBF. For those of you that may not know who KBF is a local lawyer here in Zambia. And, you know, interestingly enough, I remember when Michael Sata first won the elections. What year was that? I forget what year that was. I remember I was at Mulungushi Conference Center, and I was sitting actually, not standing, sitting at a table with KBF, the late William Sanda, and Bamumbakapumpa. That's right, that's who it was. And this was right before they officially announced the results of the elections. What year was that Michael Sata won the elections? Please tell me in the comments, because when you get to my age, you just forget stuff, and it doesn't mean anything. It just simply means you've got it. 2011. Thank you. Well, I was sitting at a table with KBF, Mumbakapumpa, and the late William Sanda. And, we were listening, we were there to listen to the results. And right before the results came out, Mr. Mumbakapumpa sort of leaned into me and said, if these guys come out with anything other than Michael Sata has won this election, there's a crowd outside that is waiting to fillet us alive. Remember, I don't know if you guys remember this. We were at Mulungushi Conference Center. The outskirts of Mulungushi, outside of the fence, outside of the perimeter of Mulungushi was completely clogged, mate. It was full of supporters and young men from Garden Compound. It was just, and the police were outnumbered, mate. Totally outnumbered. I felt sorry for those sorry sods because they were standing by the gate in an attempt to protect the people that were in Mulungushi Conference Center, but the police were totally inadequately equipped. There weren't enough police officers. The crowd outnumbered the police. So I remember Mumbakapumpa turning to me saying, mwewa, if they come out and say that Michael Sata has lost these elections, we are not going to come out of this place alive, because the crowd that is outside there is going to fillet us, is going to eat us alive. And I remember, they finally came out and they made the announcement, and there was this jubilation, and everybody was sort of happy, and then I walked. I left the Mulungushi, went home, and as I was leaving, there was a huge crowd coming from Garden Compound. I mean, it looked like a mob, mate. And I'm sorry to say this, but this is the truth. I'm just telling you what happened. You could actually smell them before you saw them. The crowd was so palpable. They were so thronged, for lack of a better word, that you could literally smell them before you saw them, mate. And it was a very strange time. And I remember thinking, have we done the right thing, mate? Because of the nature of, the nation was at a different place, actually, at that time. Mentally, the country was in a different place. People had this idea, I'll never forget, people had this idea that, because, Basata ran on this ticket of lower taxes, more money in your pockets. There were people that literally thought that money would just instantaneously appear in their pockets. I'll never forget standing by, there was a parking lot on Cairo Road, and this was literally a couple of days after Michael Sata had won. And one of the guys that cleans the cars, do you know how sometimes you have a parking slot and then there's the guy standing there with a bucket of water and they clean your car? Well, this guy says, yep, so nobody impia shara from pocket. Any moment now, my pocket is going to be bulging with money. People bought into that. Anyway, it was a different time. You live and learn, don't you? Right. I was watching KBF, and KBF is a local lawyer here. The letters, the initials KBF stand for Kelvin Wadiasampa. KBF is highly rumored to take over from EcL, according to him. Many of you know that not too long ago, KBF was on air and he sort of intimated, he sort of hinted, he sort of implied, mate, sort of suggested that the late EcL had actually selected him, had sort of knighted him. Do you know the phrase knighted? You know, with a sword, knighted him, sort of bequeathed. Do you know the word bequeathed? Sort of given the mantle of leadership and placed it strategically on his shoulders, mate. So basically, KBF has gone on a campaign to sort of convince the electorate that when EcL was coming to the end of his life, the one person that he was confident would take over from him, by virtue of the fact that he's a fellow lawyer, and of course, this is everything that I'm telling you came from KBF. KBF feels that EcL, in his dying moments, sort of pointed at him as the one that would take over from him, from EcL. Of course, that is subject to debate, and that is entirely up to the leadership of the MPF, the Notorious Patriotic Front. They will make their own decision. They will. Of course, the process of selecting a successor is going to be likened to a rerun of the movie 300. The selection process within the PF of installing a new leader post EcL is going to make the film 300 look like a picnic on a Sunday afternoon, mate. And I'm not joking when I say that. It's going to be utter bedlam. They're going to be jumping out of windows, okay? It's going to be one of those Nigerian films that we see, except it's going to be in real life and in real time. I'm not trying to be disparaging. I'm just telling you the truth, okay? All right, so KBF was recently on air, and he said a couple of things that I just want to highlight. The first thing he said, and he was talking about how we should bury a late president. And he said, the procedure must be this. This is the procedure, he says. He says, whenever a president or a former president dies, it is mandatory. Now, the word mandatory means by law. Okay, everybody has to do it. Everybody has to follow it. It is mandatory that the nation must be informed of that death within 2 hours. Now, and then he goes on to talk about how, the UPND government, they waited 4 days by the time they announced, and also the way it was announced. He sort of disparaged the UPND government's slowness to announce. Now, let me explain. Of course, I'm not a government spokesperson, but I am a citizen of this nation, and this is not my first rodeo. I've seen all presidential candidates from the beginning. I've met all presidents from the very beginning, from Kaunda to the current. Okay, I've had one-on-one conversations with all of them, and I sort of have my finger on the political pulse. I know Zambian geopolitics as a citizen. I am an active voter, and I pride myself in that. I actively vote. I'm not one of these citizens that stands on the sidelines and then complains about it. I cannot stand people who don't vote, but yet they have the audacity. They have the unmitigated gall. They have the grit to sit there and start complaining about this, that, and the other, but they don't vote. That's an oxymoron, mate. It shouldn't be that way. Anyway, so my point is this. I've been around, so I know. One of the reasons I have observed, in my view, okay, one of the reasons the administration took so long to announce the death of EcL was essentially the family closed off everybody. The family concealed everything from everyone, even down to his sickness, even down to his ailment, everything down to why he went to South Africa in the first place. All of that was covered under a veil of secrecy. Chisongo. Ha! Let me say that again. All of that was cloaked, was shrouded, was covered in secrecy and ambiguity. I mean, when he went to South Africa, nobody really knew why he went there. Even though his personal physician had informed Secretary to the Cabinet, Patrick Kangwa, kuti, we're going to South Africa for a procedure, a routine procedure. Patrick Kangwa, on record, said, if there's anything you need for us to do, please let us know. The NPF, the Notorious Patriotic Front, spun this lie, created this lie that EcL was blocked from leaving the country to go to South Africa. That didn't happen. It was just a falsity that the NPF created for political purposes. So my point is, one of the reasons, in my view, one of the reasons the administration took longer than usual to announce from their end that, in fact, indeed, Chine wa EcL nabafwa, is because the family closed off everybody. It was very difficult to penetrate the information power structure of the PF because they had concealed everything. The administration knew, and this is key, the administration knew that they could not fumble the ball and prematurely announce the death of EcL. Ooh, that's a heavy one. That's a heavy one, boy. You need to let that sizzle in your spirit. Let that marinate in your soul for a moment. Let that bubble in your soul. The administration knew that they couldn't be too quick to announce the demise of EcL. They couldn't prematurely pronounce the death of EcL because they knew the ramifications. Can you imagine? Because according to KBF says the procedure must be like this. Whenever a president or a former president dies, it is mandatory by law, it is required by law that the nation must be informed of that death within 2 hours. The UPND administration only announced from their end after 4 days. Why? Why 4 days? Because the family were closed. They were not divulging information. And the government had to be absolutely certain, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that what they were going to announce was real, it was authentic. Imagine the colossal blunder. Zambian politics. Let us just imagine for a moment. Let us suspend all reason and just imagine the government announce prematurely, without knowing full well, without getting all the facts, without dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. Imagine if the administration prematurely announced Kuti EcL now for South Africa, and then for it to come out that actually he didn't die. Can you imagine the colossal political blunder and the seismic shift that would cause? Bantu ichalo kuti chatenkana. Wamana, wachita prematurely announce, umunanko tafuide, alechita announce that umunanko nafwa, kanchu umunanko tafuide. Can you imagine the colossal discombobulation of the issue? Chalo kuti chatenka, ba PF kuti batfe, alefwa atiafwe. He just wanted his friend to die. That's why he announced kuti EcL nafwa. Kanshu mwanangu ali ku South Africa. Mwewa afiafwe. So the government, my point is this, the government had to be absolutely certain because there was no free flow of information between government and the family. The family, they don't like HH. They don't like him. Okay, that's the truth. Tassila and the team, they don't like HH. They don't like his administration. They don't like anything to do with the government. So, of course, they are going to be withholding information. They were withholding. So the government had to establish 100%. There could not be any room for error. There could not be any room for question, for ambiguity, for doubt. There had to be 100% certain that EcL had in fact passed away. Then they announced. You know, you waited 4 days. Why did you wait 4 days? Yeah? It means you don't care. You know, these politicians, our politicians, you know, I think, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But you sometimes you don't see straight. Your vision, your political vision is not 2020, mate. It isn't. You know, honestly, really. I mean, you lose me. You really, honestly, you guys, some of you politicians, your elevator doesn't go all the way to the top. You're not the full ticket, you know. You really aren't. And we, the Zambian electorate, the people that are standing on the sidelines, we have a clearer vision of where the nation is than you are, because your perception is blinded by partisan interests. No problem. Fionn said to you, my politics. Some of us, we see it the way it is. The way it is meant to be seen. Our sugar. Politicians, chimbi chimbi. I mean, there's Given Lubinda. Given Lubinda. He keeps preaching to the choir. And this amazes me. I mean, honestly, really, it just absolutely amazes me how Given Lubinda consistently preaches to the choir. He says, no, people need to understand Kuti power is not permanent. People need to understand that a president cannot always be there in perpetuity. People need to understand that one day these leaders are going to be removed. He preaching to the choir. Everybody knows that. We all know there's tenure. We don't live in a monarchy. We have no monarchs here. We have no kings and queens. Okay. Every president, every administration has to contend with that little thing called tenure. So why are you preaching to the choir? Everybody knows that. But Given says it in such a way that I think there's a tinge. You know that word tinge. There's a hint of but that's a given. Every president, every presidency has a beginning, middle, and end because of tenure. It's a constitutional thing. It's not a Given Lubinda thing. Okay? It is a constitutional thing. You must understand that. So the word on the street is that EcL is going to be buried on Wednesday in South Africa. And at this stage, I think we should just let the family do what they want. And but in the recesses of their minds, in the deep crevices of their heart and their conscience, they know that what they're doing is wrong. If indeed they bury him in South Africa, they know fully well that they're doing the wrong thing. They're being guided by the wrong interests. They're being guided by the wrong people. And when they put him, if and when they put him to rest in South Africa, I doubt that they'll come back to Zambia. Where's the sense of that? Mwasha, you leave your loved one deposited and swallowed in the soil of South Africa, and you leave him there, and then you come here to Zambia and you continue your business as usual. You think that's normal? It's not. Everything about that is wrong. Everything about that smacks of being inconsiderate. You are not being fair to the Zambian people, and certainly not being fair to EcL, because I will tell you, that's the last thing EcL ever wanted, is to be buried on foreign soil. The very last. Why? Because he served as this nation. He served as president of this nation. And lastly, let me just say that South Africa, understand that Tonse PF are not going to facilitate anything. You are on your own. If you could transport, accommodation, mwewa. Don't go there thinking given Lubinda's going to write you a check. He won't. Okay, he's looking for money himself. Don't you think for one moment that Miles Sampa is going to foot your bill. He's trying to put two coins together himself. Don't think for one moment that Sean Zero Lunatic Looney Tunes Screw Loose Tembo is going to write you a check. He's just trying to pay his own bills. Okay. But I'd share that with you guys. It's 14 hours. I gotta go. God bless. Good night. I mean, bye. Good night.